organization, but we're going to do this. We are going to do this. So, the book really centers on how do we take back our legacy, take back our work, take back our people, and think about our history of growing food. Can't do anything without rethinking Booker T.
Come on, come on.
Now, I know some of us got a little chip on our shoulder about Booker T, but I'm demanding that we rethink our position on the Booker T question. I hear some grumbling, y'all. I hear you, and I understand. What we don't, I just want to say this. I would hate to go down in history known for three things: an argument, a school, and a speech. So think about a life's work reduced to those three things. Yeah. An argument, a school, and one speech. Not even a whole speech, like a phrase, a sentence in the speech. Yeah. So when we think about what Booker T really did, what he did was he said, we have money in this community. We must build our own. We must build our own schools. We can use the money in our Black-only institutions, like our churches, our benevolent funds, our fraternal organizations. And so there were ways and places where there was only Black money. You could not, as a Black person, go to a white doctor. So we had Black money in Black institutions. So he said, okay, well, let's build our schools. And so what happened was that it wasn't just Tuskegee. There were several of his students went all throughout the country and built similar Tuskegees on the same frame, which is, how do you build a community around agriculture? So my question is, how can we rethink Booker T given this historic moment when we must do what? Rebuild our communities. So this question of thinking about Booker T in particular ways, looking at Black institutions, using Black institutions to create Black communities is a critical one.
Yes, it is.
Because no one is going to fund your freedom.
Say that. Say that.
So we've got Booker T. I'm learning to love him. Really, really kind of, So Du Bois has always talked about political mobilization, but what you don't know is his work on cooperatives. Right?
Okay.
He wrote an article, he wrote a piece, he did a study on Lowndes County that was so scathing that the folks who petitioned the study destroyed it. Years of work went into understanding, and the condition of Black folk in Lowndes County was so awful, so atrocious, they destroyed it. The record is not found. There are some pieces of it in certain places trying to get to that. But his work on political mobilization, political organizing, and participation is another way. So for Booker T, we need to think about Black institutions and community building. And how do these cooperatives, collectives, and unions, how do they function in that regard? For the work of Du Bois, how do Black organizations, Black farmers, Black community collectives, how do we work in terms of regular political participation and mobilization? Y'all don't sleep on him. Don't sleep on him. You can do a search to identify what are the books that have been written on Dr. George Washington Carver, and you are reduced to a footnote, a mythology, and a lot of children's stories. He is the father of sustainable agriculture. So the reality of what he was doing at Tuskegee is mind-blowing given what was happening. They call him the original dumpster diver. Because he was surrounded by these rich institutions that were throwing away these Bunsen burners and these, all the little, he would go over there and say, well, look, this is still some good. So this whole recycling movement has George Washington Carver to take because of it.
Another thing.
And when we think about this contrast between conventional agriculture, how did conventional equal contaminated?
Come on.
How did that happen? He was telling us what to do. He told us he had messages for farmers. He had a lot of things. So just think about rethinking, unearthing the history behind George Washington Carver. And I can't have a page without a system. So in the book, what we're doing is we're raising the work of Sister Fannie Lou to that of an intellectual.
All right.
Her work was absolutely academic. And so when you talk about, quote, great thinkers, you have to be a great thinker to have done the work that she did, particularly with Freedom Farms. And so Gramsci talks about the distinction between traditional and organic intellectuals, and I'm arguing that the work of Fannie Lou Hamer was absolutely academic and activist. So these are the three ways that we resist. What does coming together allow us to do as farmers historically? Community and institution building, shared resources, community and education, and political mobilization and engagement. So in the chapter on Booker T. Washington, these Black farmers, cooperatives, and collectives built schools, whole schools. We had stores, banks and credit unions, healthcare, methods and mechanisms of communication, all kinds of insurance, disability insurance, life insurance, death insurance. It goes way back to the early 1900s. Housing cooperatives were developed when we pooled our resources together as growers. Here's an example of a cooperative school that was started. This is the Mechanics and Farmers Bank of North Carolina, the oldest African-American bank, and it's still around.
Wow.
Here we have a 19th century cooperatively owned pharmacy.
How about that?
If you need it, we can do it together. Here is a display of agricultural cooperatives products in the 1939 Florida State Fair in Tampa. And they have all kinds of like homemade cane syrup. I mean, these are value-added products, y'all. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to do this all new. Be like, you know what, I just came up with this idea. You know, probably our ancestors were already doing it.
Yep,
Right?
that's
So we
right,
just need
that's
to honor
right.
these stories. We
We
don't
do.
have to redo this. Here is G's Bend, a cooperative store. Here is a clinic, a health clinic for examination right in G's Bend. I love this because this elder and this baby, and they're looking at a food chart in a cooperative clinic waiting room, 1939. We don't have to redo this, y'all.
Yep.
We really don't. One of my favorites, this is from, is it looking good? It comes from the actual newsletters that I got at the Schomburg yesterday. This is the Freedom Quilting Bee.
Wow.
From the Federation of Quilting. This is a field supervisor who's teaching children in a cooperative garden as a part of the school program, the curriculum.
Warriors.
Say that.
Here we have adults who are engaged in physical activity. This is what cooperatives are supposed to do. This is what we're supposed to do. Looking at the beauty of and thinking about roles of gender. This is Mrs. Martha Mosley, who's coming from the store. She manages and runs her own farm and was doing cotton, a part of the G's Bend Family Cooperative. This picture, it caught me because this is listed as the star pupil. This is an 82-year-old elder who was
Alhamdulillah.
Well.
All right now.
Yeah.
Cooperatives. So this is a teacher in terms of home economics in Prairie Farms, Alabama, one of the cooperatives there. Just think, I've read this somewhere, you know, on a Facebook feed. So somebody says something, what role did destroying home economics have?
See that? Absolutely.
Gendered. Now, they didn't have some boys in there, I wouldn't mind it. Right? I was doing the mechanical drawing too, but what role did home economics do to destroy our diets
See
and how we
that?
raise our children?
That's right.
Right? Here is a cooperative store that Fannie Lou Hamer in 1969, Fannie Lou's Freedom Farms. Now this is interesting because this is also, this is the Freedom Quilting Bee, but look at the intergenerational relationships.
Yes. Yes.
Right? And not only are they recognizing the importance of these relationships, but also the importance of African tapestry. The images that were created were inherent in these quilts. This is history. I got this one. This is Press Power. It's from the New Communities Incorporated that Reverend and Mrs. Shirley Sherrod started in Albany, Georgia. Press Power, because whatever you need, we're going to have. You need to make sure that your messages get out for your protests or your documents or whatever you need to have done. We're going to cooperatively take care of. So this is what I mean by institution and community building. So when you go back to your homes and you think about all the wonderful things that need to be done, know that you can do a lot together. And we need to figure this out, unearth these stories. These are students in a shop class. I was gifted a brick from the original dairy and horse barn built in Tuskegee, 1918.
Wow.
Sits proudly on my desk at the University of Wisconsin. Just the history of it. These are, you know, this is Tuskegee. So what they taught at Tuskegee was, you need to build a house. You don't need to just grow food. You need to know how to build some bricks. These bricks are still 2013, right? Still. So So we need to make sure that these things are incorporated in our education. I'm going to go a little quick so we can have some question and answer. So what about George Washington Carver? What I think about George Washington Carver is he makes sure that we don't privilege education and formal educational institutions over community. So the relationship, I feel like his work reminds us, you don't have farmers come to you, you take the work to growers, right? And so what are the ways in which these cooperatives function to share information and to cross those typical boundaries? This is one of the early farm conferences at Tuskegee, lots of folks in that room. You all know about the Jessup Wagon, also called the Movable School. But when farmers couldn't make it to Tuskegee, they took the work and the information, the studies, they took it to them. And folk got dressed up. This is Sunday best right here.
Yes, they are.
This is
Yes, it is.
roll out of bed and grab some. This was serious business here. I love this picture. These are the Tuskegee girls of 4-H.
Wow.
Where the slogan was, food for freedom. Y'all, I'm not making this
Wow.
up. 1926, I'm not making it up. I found this for real. This is a corn cooperative grist mill, part of G's band. This is the cooperative store. These are farmers who get their seeds. So what they did was, black farmers would pool their resources together. They say, okay, you're not gonna sell to me. All of us will put our money together and say, we all need seeds. So we would find somebody who would say, I can't say no to $1,000.
Right.
They bought seeds together, they bought land together, they shared tools, instruments. Even the SWAFCA, Southwest Alabama Farmers Collective, they would have what they call moon farmers. So if you were a moon farmer, that meant that you agreed to do certain things by the location of the moon, which meant that we would all plant together, water together, weed together, harvest together so that we could get the maximum amount of money and the maximum harvest at the same time and take those foods. So we don't have to reinvent these things. This is the solar water heater from the Federation. Solar water heater. Y'all this ain't new?
Wow.
Yeah.
These are solar panels. These are elders who are sitting outside of a cooperative store. Community warehouse. The soil conservation talks, 1940. A dairy cooperative in Greensboro, Alabama. This is the Delta Cooperative Hill House planting corn on the land that fed 28 farm families. Another cooperative store at G's Bend. Here we're talking about the shared tools and also sharpening plow points at the vocational school. And another meeting of the soil conservation. So given the community and institution building, that's one thing. Given the shared resources, that's something else. But how did these black farmers, cooperatives, and collectives, how did they resist? So here's where Du Bois talks about political engagement. You have your traditional sort of cotton harvest strikes where we said, you know what, if you're not gonna pay us, we're not gonna pick it.
See?
We will not. So you go ahead and try to figure that out. The contribution of Holmes County and Fayette County, where black farmers who own land allow the Freedom Riders to come down and to camp on their properties, on their plots. So this is the direct contribution to, you put their land up for bail to get us out of jail when we were resisting in the civil rights movement. All sorts of voter registration drives and other forms of formal politics. And so when people understood the power of the collective, what happened? Here's a newspaper article. Vicious blacks were planning a great uprising. They were planning to strike. They were sharecroppers and tenant farmers who were demanding a right. So now you've got this is a different media, right? This is different news. And so these elders were a part of the Elaine, Arkansas, the massacre there in 1919. And so when they found out that folks were trying to organize, they came into the community and terrorized. So you have this Red Summer. The Red Summer was the destruction of black communities, and especially those who were organizing, particularly for farmers' rights, workers' rights, and to build cooperatives. So they knew the power of the cooperative. And we knew the power of the cooperative because that was the mechanism through which we were able to organize. So that Elaine, Arkansas, when you look at 1919, that whole Red Summer, you have all these spurts of black communities and, quote, riots, where these black communities were destroyed, and a lot of it had to do with organizing and unions. Excuse me, So here's the Southern Tenant Farmers Alliance. Here are some of the meetings in St. Francis County, Arkansas. There are sisters that are at the meetings, engaged in, growing, and resisting. We also have the Mississippi Freedom Labor Movement. Don't you love that?
Wow.
Take a t-shirt right now, thank you. Right. And what role did this organization, I mean, we resisted in the traditional expected ways. Here we have the Mississippi Freedom Labor Movement. Don't work for less than $1.25 an hour.
See?
Strike City, straight up. So when you think about these intentional communities, when you think about places like Freedom Towns, that wasn't just a title because they liked it. That really meant something to us. I'm doing the Nation of Islam and their work in agriculture. We must have some land. What are we doing, right? So this conversation around resistance, you can't ignore the importance of Lowndes County. Lowndes County being the original Black Panther, right? Using that as a symbol. And Bloody Lowndes and all the other ways. But there was a particular kind of politics that was taught and expressed in Lowndes County. And so here you have the development of a whole third party. And here you also have the connection between Lowndes County and Detroit.
All right, all right.
Wendell Pierce told me, he says, you know, if you went and fought against somebody for your land, if there was a land dispute, he said it was really interesting because you'd have this argument, this disagreement, and by morning you were in Detroit for your safety. Right?
Yeah.
Wow.
But guess what we took with us?
Come
Our
on.
political framework, our political resistance, and that is one of many reasons that Detroit is important to this conversation. Pulled the lever for the Black Panther. Voter registration drives, they ran their own candidates.
My grandfather.
This, I love this story because he was evicted. He's an evicted Arkansas sharecropper. He was one of the members of the Southern Tenant Farmers Union, and this is the house he built on his own after he'd been evicted.
All right now.
So when we think about the work of Fannie Lou, I love this picture because she ain't having it. She's lucky got nothing going on. Not today.
Not today.
So this Freedom Farms is so exciting because we're looking at her work moving from voter registration directly to building a farmer cooperative, a community of folk. And what did she do? With a gift from the National Council of Negro Women, they gifted 50 pigs to create either the Oink Oink Project or the Pig Bank Project.
All right.
So the assumption is that if you were a family that needed, you would get a pregnant gilt and you would take care of the gilts, take care of the babies, and when they had the babies, and you passed the pigs on to somebody else, and so as a source of meat, as a source of income, this then became really important. There were approximately 850 families that were impacted by the pig bank. They had a housing development. They offered school scholarships. They had Afro Boutique.
All right now.
A sewing cooperative, a cooperative laundromat. They offer disaster relief and also transportation. So this is what we can do when we pull our resources together. These are examples of agricultural cooperatives that start on the basis of how do we rebuild community around a sustainable food system? And then what does this all look like? So just how do we leave this space? We have to understand that there is no separation between the struggle for land, for food, for education, for employment, for safety, security, transportation, housing, and healthcare. We have to understand that there's a resilient, in order for cities to be resilient, we must pull our resources together. We must do this together, and we can do this around growing. So if growers were the backbone, I would argue, for the civil rights and the Black freedom movement, what about today?
Come on.
Can't we be the backbone of this rebuilding of our own reality? And so, I think it's so important in this moment to make sure that we bridge those lines that have divided us for way too long. How do we connect to the north, connect the north to the south? Glad that Ben Burkett is going to be our keynote for this evening because I talk about the work, the research, but he's been doing it his whole life. There has to be a connection made between the north and the south. Elders and youth, we must bridge those divides.
Yes.
We must bridge the divides between rural and urban.
Yes.
These are false dichotomies. And national and international. We are not here and things are not better for us, quote.
Come on.
We must find a way to bridge the divides between Black folk growing here and abroad. And so I say times are hard, but we've been here before. And the only way we do this is together.
All
So I just want to show you what transformation can happen and who we are doing. We are planting seeds. There was an African proverb that says, good is the man who plants a seed for the tree, he will never enjoy the shade.
See?
Right? These are the babies.
That's right.
These are the ones that we do this work for. We need them to see a free community. I love this picture. This was borrowed, and I have to apologize to all my Facebook friends. Yes, I do borrow your pictures. Go with permission. I do with permission. This picture is D-Town at our D-Town harvest.
Well.
These are babies who are free to roam
Yes.
our 7 acres
Yes.
without fear
Yes.
of
That's
anything
right.
or anybody hurting or harming
Yes.
them.
That's right.
That's what these garden spaces must do.
Yes.
We must transform our communities to make sure that our babies can be superheroes.
Well.
And so I leave you planting seeds,
Look at that.
sharing love, and making sure that we do this not for us, but for our future. Thank you. We have time for questions? This is how we do this, y'all.